Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of where Issei become the true silver dragon god emperor of fate. Since the spark of creation, two forces have been at odds with one another, though being on the same sides of the same coin, they fight as if sworn enemies. These forces have had many concepts over the eons: good evil, light darkness, life death, innocent guilty, purity corruption, hope despair. These two beings locked in battle for eternity, with one never getting the upper hand over the other. It's as if an unstoppable force met an immovable object. Issei Hyoudou, a member of infamous perverted trio and the current Sekiryuutei, as well as the loyal pawn of Rias Gremory, at least he was, after the defeat of the warmonger, notices how almost everyone in his life begins to see him as he never even existed. Feeling completely neglected, he begins to have nightmares of being betrayed for being too weak, not knowing this would come to pass. Filled with anger and a broken heart, Issei begs Ddraig to remove his evil pieces, but with the price of a more terrifying truth. Now seeing both the world and the people who he thought loved and cared for him for who they really are, he sets out on becoming the strongest being in existence with a destiny that revolves, holding the fate of two universes on his shoulders. Will Arskaruk overcome this tragedy and be a beacon of hope, or will he become swallowed and consumed with despair? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now let's get into part 1. Issei's dream. Issei stood alone in the midst of a white field that almost looked like vines of some sort if it looked closely. He was confused, since usually when he dreams it's either about boobs or he's talking with his friend and partner Ddraig, one of the two heavenly dragons and the original Red Dragon Emperor. But this was different, since it didn't feel like a dream, but more like a memory of some sort, which confused Issei even more, since he never had a memory where he was standing in a field like this. Issei. Confused, where am I? But then it happened. An explosion occurred in the middle of the field with two opposing forces, with one being a fiery red and the other being deep blue, and even though Issei was essentially a novice to the supernatural, he knew that the amount of power that these two were releasing was incredible. When the explosion died down, what he saw both shocked him and had him in awe. There were two demons with similar looks standing across from each other with a battle-ready stance. The first one had 4 wings folded down, blue arm-mounted blades, and a thick reptilian tail with a barbed tip that extends from between its shoulders. The head resembles a traditional samurai helmet more, with the horns assuming hollowed and tube-like shape, venting demonic energy in a manner resembling exhausts. The solid part of his body resembles samurai armor more, and the whole body is wreathed in silver aura. The color scheme was silver to blue, opposite of the other's coloring. The second one had 2 pairs of wings, and the horns on top of the head were longer than the other demon. The chest and head glow with incandescent orange, and the whole body is wreathed in demonic flames. The solid parts of the body seem to be a combination of metal and black demonic stone. Any areas of exposed skin are covered in square scales. Issei, while watching the two, he could hear in the background a melody, a song. I'm the storm that is approaching. The two demons, though similar in both looks and nature, but they fought as if they were mortal enemies. As if the two demons were trying to point out a statement, and in order to do so they must fight till the other is no longer to fight. From what Issei could tell was that two demons were about ready to finally finish it all with one final attack. But just as these two mighty demons met each other head-on for what seemed like to be their final clash until, boom, something came crashing down that landed between the two demons, which caused a large explosion that was large enough to make the brown-haired boy fly across the field and land right on his ass. Issei groans in pain while rubbing the back of his head. What the hell was that? When the brown-haired boy looked back to where the two demons were fighting, what he saw had him in complete shock. When the dust settled down, he saw a third demon that was in between the two other demons from before, holding them back. But Issei could sense something different about this demon, not only in strength but also in appearance. Unlike the other two, this demon was more human-like. His face is largely human rather than the reptilian look than the other two. His skin lacks the jagged armor-like scales that cover them, and he lacks physical wings. In place of the wings were arm-like energy wings. He also had yellow pupils with sharper eyes, and the scale within his eyes turned black, unlike the other two demons whose eyes were a solid fiery orange and a deep azure blue. Issei. In awe. Issei was completely in awe of the third devil, since even though he was most definitely a demon, he also looked like an angel, essentially having the best of both worlds. Upon the two other demons' battle being stopped, they began to glow and reverting back to their human forms, which shocked the brown-haired boy since he didn't think that devils can actually do that. It made him wonder if Rias or the others can do something like that, or even if he could do it, but that would be a question for another day. The first demon turned out to be a man in his late 40s who had fair, yet pale skin, and white hair, and had somewhat of a scruffy beard going on. He had blue eyes. He wore a faded red jacket, had a washed-out look, a skull on his back. He wears an ordinary black Henley t-shirt with 3 buttons, as the sleeves itself reach through his elbows, where it also features torn details. For his wrists he wears black driving gloves and white bandages. For his legs he wears a black belt with golden accents, black leather pants, and brown boots. The second demon turned out to be similar to the first demon, in that it was a man in his late 40s who had fair yet pale skin. He had white hair, but his hair was swept back, which puts emphasis on the fierce yet stoic expression on his face, as well as having blue eyes. He wore a black coat with light neon blue serpentine patterns, and 3 separated coattails with slightly tattered edges. He was seen wearing a black sleeveless zippered turtleneck beneath his midnight blue formal vest. He also wears charcoal gray fingerless gloves, black pants and dark boots covered by teal gaiters. Issei. Curious. It's weird, they almost look like they are brothers. They look so identical to one another that it's scary, but it's obvious that their personalities must be completely opposite. But before Issei could say anything else, the second white-haired man spoke in a stoic tone, but Issei could tell he was both shocked and curious of the demon that stopped his battle. Curious, this is curious. Confused Nero? Issei. Curious. Oh, that's his name, Nero. I'm pretty sure it means strong in Italian. In that case, he must be strong to stop 2 powerful demons like that. Just as Issei finished making that statement, the demon now known as Nero pushed back the 2 brothers to opposite sides of the area, which amazed Issei since it looked like he just gently pushed them. The 2 brothers were definitely surprised by how far they were pushed back, as if they didn't think Nero would be this strong. Bronson. Frustration. What form of power is this? Bronson. Annoyance. What the hell? As soon as the brothers finished saying those words, Nero began to glow similar to what the 2 brothers did earlier and reverted back into a human. In his human, Nero looked like a younger version of the 2, but with his hair shortened to a full hawk-like style, and now wears a more casual punk attire consisting of a dark blue hooded jacket, a tattered dark crimson shirt, a small necklace made of 2 folding feathered wings surrounding a red stone, and black pants with military-style combat boots. The brown-haired was definitely surprised and thought that maybe he must have been the younger brother of these 2 and was either trying to stop the fight or join in. Nero? Serious, this ends right here. Issei? Surprised, so he is trying to stop the fighting. But just as Nero finished saying those words, the man in the red jacket begrudgingly got up and tried to walk up to Nero as if to tell stay out of this fight. Serious, listen to me. I told you already, this is not your. But before the man could finish that statement, Nero with his energy wings balled up into a fist, and smacked the man enough to not only make him spit out blood, but also send him back to where he was before. Even the other brother was surprised by how Nero was able to send the man flying without even trying. The brown-haired couldn't help but wince, since he knew from all those times from being beaten up the kendo club that definitely hurted. And if it was him, not even if he promoted himself into a rook or boosted his defenses enough, that smack to the jaw would have definitely killed him. Issei winces with one eye closed. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Nero? Serious, you listen? Dead weight. I won't let you kill each other. There are other ways of settling your differences. I'm putting a stop to this sibling rivalry. This shocked Toisi, since not only did he find out that he was right and these 2 are indeed brothers, but the fact they were trying to actually kill each other. Now the brown-haired boy understood that in the supernatural things tend to get cranked up to 11, but to actually kill your sibling was unthinkable to say. If he had a brother or sister, he could never bring himself to actually kill him. Even if said sibling had done terrible things, he couldn't bring himself to kill them. But before Issei could think further on that subject, he heard the other brother chuckling in amusement. Smirks, you came all this way just for that, Nero? Serious Virgil versus whatever you call yourself. Dante's not gonna die here, and neither are you. Do you have a problem with that? Peasy, curious, so the one on the ground must be Dante and the other must be Virgil, or V. Dante. Groan's not gonna die. My ass, that bitch slap nearly killed me. Braces an eyebrow. It definitely looked that for sure. Virgil, serious, if I beat Nero. Point sword at Nero, then by default, I beat you, agreed Dante. Dante sighs in annoyance while waving it off. Whatever, I don't really care. I'm just gonna sit this one out. Issei. Sweat drops. Probably a smart idea. It was then Issei looked over to Nero and Virgil, who seemed to be ready to fight with Nero's energy wings, cracking their knuckles ready to fight. But what Nero said next would shock the brown-haired boy immensely. Nero, serious, when this is over, I'll make you submit, father. This indeed shocked Trois Seasons. This entire time he believed that Nero was probably the younger brother of Dante and Virgil, but in truth, Nero was actually the son of Virgil. Even though Nero said that neither of them would die, he had a bad feeling that it wouldn't be that easy, since given the expression on Virgil's face, he will not give up without a fight, and he won't hold back even if Nero is his son. Completely forgetting that this was just a dream, the brown-haired wanted to at least try to talk them down from trying to kill each other. But before Issei could even open his mouth, a new voice emerged from behind him that felt familiar to him, but also different. Serious, you must find them, Issei. Confused when Issei turned to the voice that spoke, who he saw was a man who seemed around Sergic's age, in which he had long silvery white hair that seemed to shine brightly in the sunlight. He had crimson-red eyes, but they weren't menacing or evil. They felt that they were filled with passion more than anything else, which Issei liked, since that's part of the reason why red is his favorite color, because he himself was passionate about what he does and his goals. The man wore a silver trench coat which looked like they were made out of the scales of a dragon. He also a black dress shirt underneath with a few buttons undone to give off a somewhat bad boy look. He wore black pants with matching shoes. Upon seeing the silver-haired man, Issei couldn't help feel a sense of familiarity with the man, as if he was staring into a mirror, which should be impossible since the two looked nothing alike. But at the same time they did. This truly freaked out the brown-haired boy, since he had no idea who this person was. But at the same time he felt like he knew him from somewhere but could not remember. But Issei's thoughts on that were interrupted when the mysterious silver-haired man spoke again. Serious, you must find them. You must find the sons of Sparta. Issei, confused. Sparta. Who is Sparta? It was then remembered about the dream he was currently having about Dante and Virgil fighting, and he wondered if that's who the mysterious silver-haired was talking about. Curious, do you mean Dante and Virgil? Nods, yes, and you must find them because it seems that the time has finally come. Issei. Confused? What do you mean? Sad, and what you have feared will soon commence, sheds a tear. I am so sorry that it had to be this way. If there was any other way to save you from the nightmare you are about to experience, I would use every ounce of my power to do so, but fate can be cruel even to those who do not deserve it. Upon realizing the mysterious silver-haired man was talking about, Issei's eyes widened in both fear and shock, since the only person who knows about it was his partner, Ddraig. Issei. Shocked? How do you know about that? Saddened because it is your fate, Issei. The brown-haired boy was even more terrified, since if this mysterious man was saying true, then the nightmares and visions he had been having for the past few days were actually true and was about to happen to him. Upon seeing the frightened expression on the child's face, the silver-haired man got on knee and placed his hands on Issei's shoulders to help ease his worries, since not all will end in despair. Serious, calm yourself, Issei, because there is still hope for you. Confused. Serious, from this despair you are about to experience, hope will finally be reborn. Confused. Hope will be reborn? It was then whirled around to fade, which usually meant that he was about to wake up soon, which worried the silver-haired man, since he wanted Issei more, especially knowing the many hardships and trials he must face in the future. Serious, listen to tell me, Issei. Issei, confused. Serious, find the sons of Sparta and get to Remnant, There you will have the power and answers that you seek in order to fight off against the great catastrophe that awaits you. Sad, and I can only hope that you will be truly strong enough in order to do what I could not. As soon as that, the mysterious man said that the world essentially was about to disappear and Issei began falling. But still the brown-haired boy had many questions he wanted to ask him. Issei. Confused, Wade, I don't understand. What do you mean a great catastrophe? And just who are you and how do you know who I am? Sad, and you know who I am because you are me and I am you, sheds a tear. I truly do hope that you will forgive me, Issei, for forcing this burden onto you. But not only are you my only hope of finishing what I started, but you are also my redemption. This even furthered the brown-haired boy's confusion, since he still had no idea what the white-haired man was saying. But before Issei could try figure on what the silver-haired man meant, this happened. Thump, ring ring ring. Issei then sprung out and fell out of bed with his eyes wide open, the brown-haired boy rubbing his head as he winced in pain from the surprise fall. Issei winces in pain while rubbing his head. Ah. Damn it, not again, for fuck's sake, first that dream, now in real life, what the hell. But when Issei looked around he saw that neither Rias nor Asia were in bed with him again, which scared the brown-haired boy a bit, since this has been happening since he and the orc spent that in the pool. It truly made him wonder what was going on with everyone. Even his own parents have been acting differently since Parents' Day, which was just a few days ago. It was then another voice came into the room, and it was a voice that at least knew and could count as a faint smile on his face. Serious, another nightmare, partner? Issei nods. No, not this time at least, Ddraig. But it was weird, it didn't feel like a dream, but more like a memory of sorts. That's real, it felt. The being that Issei was speaking to was Ddraig, the Welsh dragon of domination, one of the two heavenly dragons and the Red Dragon Emperor. About a few 1,000 years ago, he and his eternal rival Albion, otherwise known as the Vanishing Dragon of Supremacy and the White Dragon Emperor, were in their biggest battle against one another, but unfortunately for them, their battle was in the middle of the battlefield between the biblical factions. Their battle became so chaotic that it forced the three factions as well as the biblical god and the four original Satans to work together in order to stop their rampage. In the end, both Ddraig and Albion were killed, and the biblical gods sealed away their souls inside two sacred gears, which were the boosted gear and the divine dividing, in hopes to stop battle indefinitely, as well as make sure that they could not be revived by any means. Since then, both Ddraig and Albion have had many hosts in which they essentially used to help continue their battle to see who is the superior dragon. Currently, Issei is in the possession of the boosted gear, making him the new Red Dragon Emperor, in Japanese, the Sekiryuutei. Since finally awakening the legendary dragon just about a month ago, when he had to fight against Riser Phoenix in order to save his master and love interest Rias Gremory from an arranged marriage, he had developed a decent relationship with Ddraig. Even though he was a bit embarrassed about him being a complete pervert. He didn't care as long as Sissy helped him defeat his rival Albion and his host. But also, he did enjoy that he actually had a host who he can actually talk to and didn't treat him like a tool for power. So if it so happened, this host was a complete pervert who just wanted to be harem king, so be it, though he hoped his perversion wouldn't affect his title. Greg. Curious, what do you mean, partner? Bess. Confused, I don't know how to explain it. I knew that where I was at was real, but at the same time I didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. It was as if I was witnessing history unfolding, and not matter what I did, the outcome would always be the same. Greg, thinking, I see. It was then the brown-haired boy looked around his room only to see that it was empty, which saddened the brown-haired boy, since this has been happening ever since both he and the rest of the orc battled against the warmongering former cadre of the Gregory, Kokabiel. Upon sensing the sadness in his host, Greg decided to chime in to help ease his worries. Greg. Serious? They're not in your bed just like yesterday and the day before that as well. Issei. Sadden? Yeah. Which also means that Otuzan and Okuzan are probably not downstairs either. It was then the brown-haired boy got up from the floor and sat on his bed contemplating what's been happening to him for the past week. Issei. Sad, and is it truly going to happen to me? Greg. Concerned partner, I'm going to be honest with you, and that is I'm starting to worry about you ever since that fallen cadre was defeated and been having those dreams. You've been acting different, and not in a good way, though I am glad it has made you decide to take your training a bit more seriously. Your mental state is an entirely different matter altogether. I mean, you even gave up your other arm and your eyes so that you could have a bit more power. Sad, and I know, Dragon, I know from your perspective, I could be possibly using you to just make me stronger. But if I could just make just a little bit of progress, then maybe these thoughts and dreams would go away. Since the night that Kokabiel was defeated, then brown-haired boy has been having dreams, not vivid or concrete dreams, but more like nightmares. In the beginning, they were just random voices from those from the Orc, to be more precise. It was the voices of Kaneko, Akino, Asia, and Rias telling Issei that he was no longer needed in the peerage because he was too weak. There were other voices, but they were muffled. At first he thought it was the result of his trauma with Rainer, which was also not good, but shook it off. But the worst part was after Parents' Day, in which he ended up sleeping alone, since when both Sergiches and Zodicus began embarrassing Rias with their videos of her in class, both her and Asia decided to sleep in their own rooms. In his nightmare, the last muffled voices were his parents telling him that they were disowning him and adopting Asia as their new daughter, in which they further explained that they couldn't stand the perverted nature that he inherited from his family, and that all it did was cause problems for them, and how they felt embarrassed during Parents' Day, and how the parents commented how horrible parents they were for letting him to be this perverse. Since that first nightmare, the brown-haired boy had been secretly training to help improve himself in hopes those dreams and thoughts would go away, but all it did was make it even worse, to the point he would have visions about them during the day. The which, due to that, Issei began to stop peeping on the kendo club and just mostly hung out by himself. Well, for the most part the former exorcist and newly made knight of the House of Gremory Zenobia and Kiba would hang out with the brown-haired boy, which did help ease Issei's worries a bit. But thoughts of those nightmares never really went away. But sadly the others, with the exception of Gasper, have been, for lack of a better word, avoiding him as if he never existed in the first place. When Issei received the legendary dragon slayer Ascalon from the archangel, Michiel, he tried to ask Akino about her fallen angel lineage. She abruptly told him to drop it, and politely asked Issei to leave, which emotionally hurt the brown-haired boy. It was then he decided to ask Kiba to help him train in swordplay well with Zenobia about holy swords. Of course, they both accepted, since for Kiba he mostly wanted to help his new brother-in-arms to get stronger so that they could both protect Rias, while Zenobia also decided to help, since one, it showed that the person that she wanted to be the father of her future children was willing to get stronger, but also saw this as a chance to get closer to Issei, as to help make said children be born a bit quicker. But when they asked why Issei was taking such an interest in training, he sadly lied, since he didn't really want to tell anyone about the nightmares that he has been having out of fear that they may be true, and said he that after the battle with Kokabiel, he saw how severely outmatched he was compared to Vali and wanted to improve. He asked them to not tell Rias or the others about it, since he wanted to surprise them by how much he improved, to which they agreed. Greg. Serious? You know that neither the Gremory girl or your parents will do that to you. Even though yes, you are weak compared to Albion's host, you've only been in the supernatural for roughly 2 months, and we've only spoken about just a few weeks ago. But you have great potential inside, enough to make it you will no doubt become one of my strongest hosts. Believe me, both Albion and his host won't know what hit him before you know it. Issei smiles softly. Thank you, Ddraig. That truly means a lot to me coming from you besides Kiba and Zenobia. You are the only person I feel can truly trust and help with this episode I'm having. Greg smiles softly. Of course, partner. Issei saddened, but sadly I don't think fate will be that kind to me. Greg confused. What do you mean? I say, saddened. In that dream I had met a man who I had never seen before, but at the same time I felt familiar with him, as if I knew him from a long time ago, and he knew who I was. Scared, but what terrified me was that he knew about the nightmares, and he told me that the nightmares were actually about to come true. Greg raises an eyebrow. Partner, you seriously can't believe someone who just happened to appear in your dream and told you what was going to happen? Scared, but that's the thing, Ddraig. I do believe him. I don't know how to explain, but when I looked into his eyes, I could just tell he was telling the truth. The sadness that he had in his eyes when he said he was sorry that this had to happen to me just felt so real. This truly worried Ddraig, since if what his host was saying was true, then Issei would be in serious trouble, since if he really were to be betrayed his friends and family, then that would just spiral his emotions into depression and rage, which could be enough to trigger the Juggernaut drive, which is something that neither he nor Albion want their host to use. To this day, they could only fossicament both rage and annoyance on why the biblical god would even implant the chant to activate that accursed form in the first place, knowing the serious repercussions it can cause to the users and possibly the sacred gear itself. But right now, Ddraig needed to focus on getting his partner to calm down, since could sense the amount of negative emotions building up. And since Ddraig already turned a few portions of his body into that of a dragon, then no doubt the Juggernaut drive will be the least of his worries if his host were to lose it. Greg, serious partner, it's obvious you are getting too hung up on this. How about we relax and go for a jog to help clear your mind? Remember, it was just a dream, it doesn't mean anything. It was then Issei looked over to his alarm clock and saw that he still had a few hours before he needed to get ready to go to school. As such, he decided to take the Welsh dragon's advice and decided to go for a jog to help clear head. Once he put on his gym clothes, he went downstairs and saw that no one was home, which did sadden the brown-haired, but decided to keep on moving with his routine. Even though he hasn't grown a lot in terms of power since he started his new routine, Ddraig assured him that godlike power doesn't grow overnight, and that it does take time to grow and mature. He even furthers helping his confidence by explaining that it took both Ddraig and Albion a few centuries before they became part of the top 10 strongest in all of existence. But he does remark that is indeed getting stronger slowly but surely. As Issei continued on his job, decided to ask the Welsh dragon something that occurred in his dream. Issei mind, curious. Hey Ddraig. Greg. Curious, what is it, partner? Mind. Curious, I'm curious. Just how old are you exactly? I mean, sure, you have been around for a few centuries before you locked away inside the boosted gear, but it also means that you know a lot of things that not even probably Rias or Circeches know about, right? Greg, serious partner, I have been around essentially since the dawn of this planet, and even though me and Albion didn't make our debut until the time of King Arthur and her knights, I assure you that I have been a lot longer than that. So I would like to size, I do know a lot of things that not even the current leaders of the factions, or even the gods of other pantheons know about. But I know that there might be some gaps in my knowledge from my soul being essentially jammed into the boosted gear to that particular knowledge being repressed due to trauma, or simply due to the fact that things might have changed since my imprisonment. Issei mind? Shocked. Wait, King Arthur was a woman. Greg. Serious? Yes, she was. That was something that I'm pretty sure that not even the current faction leaders knew about, since she hid gender so well. But as you might have figured out by now, due to that huge factor, there were definitely some complications, so much so that she had to hide the truth about her gender from even her own knights, which eventually led to the fall of Camelot. Issei mind, sad and damn, that sucks, to be forced into a situation like that from birth, and essentially having the fate of an entire kingdom on your shoulders, all while hiding who you truly are. I don't think I could ever do that. Curious. But you sound like you know her personally. Was she one of your past hosts or something, Greg? Greg? Serious, kind of. In truth, I actually met her father Uther Pendragon when the wizard Merlin came to me to help bless Uther's mistress Igreen, to help to give birth a strong child in order to defeat his brother Vortigern, who I found out Albion did something similar. And as for the reason, I don't even think Albion remembers why he did it in the first place. Issei mind? Curious, so Arthur was kind of like your surrogate daughter. Greg. Serious, yes and no. What I essentially did was akin to you just having the boosted gear or any other dragon-type sacred gear, in which I essentially gave her a dragon magic core. So not entirely being an actual dragon, she could still be called a dragon due to the fact she was blessed with my power. Although I'm pretty certain it was never passed down to any of her descendants, or at least it faded away pretty quickly after a few generations. Smirks. I originally did to prove to Albion who has the stronger blessing, to which I was the winner. Issei mind smiles. Still, that is pretty amazing to hear, and you actually got to meet Merlin. I gotta know what he was like, or was it a she? Greg groans in annoyance while sweat dropping. Someone who, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I pray to literal fucking God that I don't ever have to meet him again. Issei mind? Curious, why was he some kind of a dick or something? Greg sighs while sweat drops. Well, let's just partner. You know how everyone in your school hates you for being a pervert. Say, mind? Curious. Yeah, why? Greg groans in annoyance while sweat dropping. Let's just see that if all of them met him and they saw you, all of them will think you are truly a saint. This shocked the brown-haired boy since he didn't know that there was someone out there more perverted than him, even though all he wanted was a harem, and that was it. But besides the fact, in school, they call him the perverted beast of Kwa, or the personification of lust. But to find out that Merlin was so perverted that the legendary dragon did not wish to be in the same room as him, completely unaware that Zed was currently laughing his ass off due to hearing both Issei and Drake's conversation. But Issei shook those thoughts, since though it was interesting to learn more about Drake's past, he needed to know something particular in his dream last night. Issei, mind? Shakes his head anyway. Curious, given that you have been around for that long, you must know a lot of famous beings from different races and unique places, right? Greg. Curious. Yes. Why, is there someone or a place you want to know about or go to? Issei, mind? Serious. Yeah. You see, in my dream the mysterious person told me that there was still hope for me, but in order to do that I needed to find someone and go to a certain place. Greg. Curious, really now? This mysterious man gave you the name of the people and place you needed to meet and go. Issei, mind? Serious? Yeah, so if you can, I want you to tell me everything about a certain demon, a demon named Sparta? This made the legendary Welsh dragon gasp and widen his eyes in shock, since he indeed knew about the legendary Dark Knight and his sons, but couldn't figure out why or how his host heard of that name, since he knew for sure he didn't read the Legend of Sparta or heard it from anyone in the Gremory peerage. As such, he decided to ask the brown-haired boy on how to come to know that name, in which Issei explained to him about his dream about Dante and Virgil fighting, and how it was stopped by Nero, who was Virgil's son. When Issei finished explaining the dream to the Red Dragon was in deep thought, since, even though both his and Albion's previous hosts have met the sons of Sparta, he doesn't recall a fight like that, which meant either it hasn't happened yet or occurred when both him and Albion were still asleep inside their current hosts. Greg, thinking, whom I see, I'm honestly surprised you know of them. Although the boy named Nero is new to me, since I don't think either me or Albion's hosts have met him, but then our interactions with the sons of Sparta was brief for the most part. Issei, mind? Curious, how brief? Greg. Serious, brief, meaning that they were killed essentially instantly after meeting with them. Issei, mind? Shocked they killed them. Greg. Serious, yes. But to be fair, my host kind of deserved for being so full of themselves in the first place. Issei, mind? Curious, what do you mean? Greg sighs. Well, this is best as any time I could tell you, but as the holder of the boosted gear, or not do you possess my soul, but also all the souls who held boosted gear before you. A majority of my previous hosts were naturally arrogant and greedy due to getting hooked onto my power to double their strength every 10 seconds. They thought they were equivalent to a god, even though a majority of them were only able to reach ultimate class status, while my strongest host so far was only able to reach the level of a low-level god. But even then they didn't stand a chance against the sons of Sparta. Issei, mind? Curious, which one did your host meet? Greg. Serious. The one that my host was Virgil, the eldest of the two brothers. He was cold, stoic, and fierce, just like his father, who was someone that not even I would want to fight in my prime. The look and eyes even made me a bit fearful of him. That's how powerful he was, and his brother Dante was practically on equal terms with him. This made the brown-haired boy think about the eldest brother Virgil from what he saw. He indeed looked cold, and all he seemed to care about was strength and power. But when he looked deep into those eyes of his, Issei saw something else hidden, a feeling that the brown-haired knew all too well, the fear of never strong enough to not protect himself or the people he cares about the most. So he tries to hide behind a mask of not caring of others and focusing on gaining strength. But the brown-haired boy couldn't really see it for sure and decided to put that thought in the back of his mind for the time being, since he still needed the Welsh dragon on who Sparta actually was. Missy, mind? Serious, okay, noted, but who exactly is Sparta? Is he devil? Greg Serious Sparta was not a devil, he was a true demon. Issei mind, confused? What do you mean, Greg? Aren't devils and demons the same thing? Greg. Serious yes and no, but in order to understand who or what Sparta was, you need to understand the history of the underworld, which, to be honest, I'm surprised your mistress hasn't explained fully to you at this point, since you might need to know this in order to become a high-class devil. But anyway, before the devils you are accustomed to and before the fall of Lucifer and the birth of the original Satans, there were the demons. Issei mind? Curious, what were they like? Greg. Serious, like the name implies, they were true demons in every sense of the word. Even a low-class demon could match up to a powerful high-class devil, as well as being more naturally resilient to holy weapons and spells as well as sunlight. But in exchange for such raw power they lack intelligence, or any form of refinement in terms of magical abilities, which is honestly the current form of devils have the advantage. Issei mind? Serious damn, I could imagine what the underworld was like back then. Greg, serious chaos. Just pure unadulterated chaos. Even the gods of the underworld like Hades, who is the strongest amongst them, had to spend a majority of their time fending off constant demonic attacks. At the pinnacle of this demonic horde was the original Prince of Darkness himself, Mundus the Demon King, a being who was even more powerful than the biblical god himself. It was actually Mundus who turned Lilith into a demon after she left Eden, hence you could say that Lilith was the first reincarnated devil in existence. Issei mind? Serious, while thinking, I guess that would explain how Buchu and Kaichu as well the other pure-blooded devils that I met so far look so human. Shocked, but holy shit, he was that powerful. Is he still around? Are we in serious danger? Greg. Serious, relax. Thankfully he's not particularly around anymore. Issei mind? Curious, what do you mean? Greg. Serious, you see, amongst the demon race, one demon, upon seeing the unjust of his kind were doing to the rest of the world, he woke up to justice and stood against both Mundus and army alone. That demon's name was Sparta, the legendary Dark Knight. From what I saw, the battle was so intense that put Mayans and Albion's battle, as well as the war between the three factions, to shame, but in the end, Sparta eventually defeated Mundus and sealed both his power and the demon realm of the underworld forever. It was on that day he was declared a hero to many races and pantheons of the world, especially humans, who some worshipped him as a sort of hero god. Though some of those demons run amok here and there, I'm pretty sure from one of my previous hosts that the factions tend to hire special demon hunters to help take care of those demons, hence why you and your group haven't seen them around. This surprised the brown-haired boy, since he didn't believe that someone like Sparta actually existed. It took him back to his childhood with Irina before discovering that he was actually a girl the entire time, and how they used to play hero all the time they would play together. He remembered his childhood dream of being a hero of justice like those shows like Kamen Rider and Gundam. Now that the brown-haired remembered, he believed that the dream that he inherited from his grandfather in a way grew from that dream of wanting to become a hero, since the hero always gets the girl. He also for some reason remembered the look that his Oka-san had whenever he mentioned about wanting to become a hero. Even though she smiled at him looking back, the brown-haired boy couldn't help but feel like his mother was forcing that smile, as if she was trying to hold her tongue about him actually to become a hero of justice. But not only that, he also had the strange feeling whenever his O2 heard him say that. At first he thought he believed his father was laughing at how adorable and cute he was, but now looking back, he genuinely thinks he was probably mocking him and his dream. This of course did make Issei Hyoudou think about the nightmares he had and how his parents were a part of it. But of course, over time, when he started high school and became a devil, that dream essentially faded away, since a part of him didn't think that a pervert, let alone a devil, can become a hero. But now hearing that someone like Sparta existed sort of helped rekindle his old childhood dream. Even though he can't be some cool dark knight like Sparta was, since he was just a pawn, he thought maybe since he was a devil, he could be another demonic hero like he once was, and he would protect the hopes and dreams of those around him. It was then the brown-haired boy looked up into the skies with that very in his mind. Issei looks up into the sky and wonders, maybe there is hope for me? Scene change. Gwa Academy. Gwa Academy is a private school in Gwa, Japan. It's a co-ed school right now, but since it was a girls' school until a couple of years ago, there are more girls than boys, and as the grade goes down, the number of boys increases, but there are still more girls than boys overall. For the second year, the ratio of girls and boys are 7-3, while for the third-year students, it's 8-2. But even with the current ratio, the girls have a much stronger authority than boys, and the majority of the students in the student council are girls. And to the student president, who is no other than Sona Chitauri, or otherwise known as Sona Citri, a high-class pure-blooded devil of the underworld. After finishing his jog, Issei did light exercises and tried to increase the amount of boosts he can take in hopes of his stamina and durability, as well as hopefully obtain balance breaker. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be that easy for the brown-haired boy since he still had quite a ways to go in order to truly achieve balance breaker. Though on the upside, Issei is currently able to handle 10 boosts for at least 5 minutes before collapsing. His magic reserves were able to improve slightly, in which Ddraig was able to teach him a simple fire spell, though he couldn't do anything flashy for the most part since his reserves were still low, even for a low-class devil. But still, the brown-haired boy was very satisfied that he was some form of progress. When he saw the classes would start in about 2 hours, he quickly ran back home to take a shower and change into his school uniform. When Issei arrived at the school gates, he was greeted the usual looks of disgust from the girls of the academy since he was considered the beast of Kwa and leader of the perverted trio, which honestly the brown-haired boy didn't know how he ended up being the so-called leader in the first place. The brown-haired boy inwardly thought that his best friends gave him that label, so that he could get most of the blame and be hounded more by the females at the school. Issei mind? Sighs and exasperation. Man, why do I feel like those guys are the ones who put me in this type of predicament? I mean, 9 times out of 10 I don't even get to peek at the kendo club changing. Which makes me think, why do I even need to peek anymore when I have Buchu and Asia sent sleeping with me naked all the time, and when I probably want to see more beautiful women in my future in the supernatural? Maybe I should kind of ditch them as friends, not because of what they do to me at school, but since I'm essentially going to be living for 1,000 of years. It would be less painful for the both of us if I cut ties now, right? I mean, it's not like I will be alone because I'll have Buchu and Asia as well as the rest of the orc with me. As soon as Issei finished, he spotted one of the 2 girls that he was thinking about just a moment ago, who was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous body, white skin, blue eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature is her long, beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead, and side bangs framing her face. She wore Core Academy girls' school uniform, which consists of a white short-sleeved button-down shirt, a magenta skirt with wide accents, and brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. This was of Rias Gremory, one of the great One Samus and high-class pure-blooded devil from the House of Gremory, as well as Issei's King Master. Next to her was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure, very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a very long ponytail, reaching all the way down to the floor with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. Like most of the girls at Core Academy, she wears the customary Core Academy girls' school uniform along with black cufflinks socks. This was of course Akino Himejima, another of the great One Samas of the Academy and is the queen of Rias Gremory. The both were casually smiling and talking with one another and walking through the halls. Upon seeing them, Issei tried going up to them and greeting them. Issei smiles happily. Ah, Gujo Kino-senpai, good morning. How are you 2 doing? As soon as the 2 beauties turned to the source of the person who was calling their name, and saw that it was Issei, their happy expressions turned serious and cold, which startled Issei. Especially since in his perspective it looked like they were looking at someone that disgusted them greatly and filled them with complete disappointment. It was then the 2 girls walked away as if they didn't know who Issei was in the first place, leaving the brown-haired boy scared and confused to point. He didn't notice the people around him snickering and laughing at him, at how the 2 great One-sama was looking at him as nothing more than an insect. All the while, the Welsh dragon saw the interaction and felt his host's emotions with great concern. Greg, mind? Eyes narrowed with a bit of concern. I have a feeling about this, and if his so-called dreams turn out to be real, then him entering the Juggernaut Drive will be the least of our worries. Time skip. Old school building. It was currently the end of the day, and everyone in the school, including those with club activities, had already gone home with the exception of the orc. And Toiseed day has been rough for the Sekiryuutei would be an understatement. Ever since that encounter with Rias and Aquino had been somewhat out of it, since the look in their eyes frightened him, it almost reminded him of the eyes of his so-called ex-girlfriend, Umar Rainer, since that was her true name. The look of not being wanted or loved by anyone just because of perversion, and that if it wasn't for the boosted gear, he was nothing. He then went to try to talk to Asia, but he was met with a disinterested look and just casually left the brown-haired boy as if she never met him in his life, which hurt Issei greatly since he thought out of everyone she would be the one he could talk to given her open and friendly attitude. Cling, cling. Currently we see Issei sparring against a handsome young man with short blonde hair, blue eyes and a mole underneath his left eye. He wears the Kwa Academy boys' school uniform, which consists of a short-sleeved dress shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes. This was of course no other than Hyoudou Kiba, otherwise known around the school as the Prince. Despite not entirely liking Kiba due to him being able to attract so many pretty girls without even trying after their encounter with the holy swords, as well as learning the blonde boy's past, he had come to respect him, as well as see him not only as a friend, but maybe a brother in arms of sorts. Though Issei couldn't help but feel a bit envious about him being able to attract so many pretty girls. But that's to be expected from an average guy like Issei. But despite all of that, Kiba was one of the 3 people that was in the orc that still talked to the brown-haired boy. Ever since receiving the legendary dragon slayer Ascalon from the Archangel Michael, both him and Kiba would have spars while the others were busy either doing contracts or prepping up for the upcoming Leaders Summit in a few days. Hyoudou of course accepted Issei's offer since it did give him the chance to test out and see the capabilities of his balance breaker sword of betrayer, though the blonde-haired knight had to admit that Issei has improved since their 10-day training trip before their raiding game with Riser, of course, not to the point he could match him if he were to go all out, but he seemed to get the hang of the basics of using a sword. Hyoudou smirks. I have to admit, Ice, you certainly have gotten better since the training trip. Issei smirks. Well, what can I say? I promised Spuchu that I would become the ultimate pawn, and I can't even learn how to use this sword that Mikil-sama gave me. Then what would be the point of him even giving it to me? Hyoudou smirks. See. Well, in that case, let's see if you can dodge or block this. It was then Kiba, using his knight's speed, got around Issei, readying to strike him at the abdomen. The brown-haired boy panicked since he wasn't expecting Kiba to use knight's speed when he can't even promote to match him. But before Hyoudou could land his attack on Issei, the brown-haired boy saw something that he could even explain. As if time slowed just a bit, Issei saw a visage of Kiba on top of the original Kiba, following the same action as the original. But he saw the visage using his knight's speed again to appear on top of Issei and readying to perform a overhead slash. Issei mind? Confused. What the hell? How the hell am I seeing 2 Hyoudous? What, one Casanova wasn't enough? Eyes narrowed, but the way that visage is moving, it's like I just already know Hyoudou is going to move like that. But should I really trust it? Just as Issei finished that thought, it was as if time was reverting back to normal flow, and not knowing what to decide, he decided to believe in the visage he saw and his instincts, and got ready for the overhead attack. Issei mind? Nervous. Here goes nothing. Fling. Issei shocked. Hyoudou eyes widen in shock. Everything that Issei saw within that visage happened as if it were a movie. Just as Kiba was about to strike Issei in the abdomen, he used his knight's speed to appear from above and tried to perform a overhead slash. But Issei, using Ascalon, was able to block the attack, which shocked both of them, especially Kiba. He didn't expect Issei to see through his feint and block his actual attack. It was then both boys casually put away their weapons while Kiba gave the brown-haired a smile of satisfaction and congratulated him on being able to block his attack. Issei mind? Shocked. Holy shit. That worked. Confused, but what was that anyway? Hyoudou smiles. Wow, Ice. I must say I am impressed. I honestly planned on stopping right before my blade hit your head as to show how far you have left to go. But you surprised me by seeing through my feint. I guess I underestimated you, and looks like you're further ahead than I thought. Issei startled smiles sheepishly while scratching the back of his head. Oh well, it was honestly nothing really. I just got lucky and followed my instincts of getting hit with a bakken is all. Hyoudou smiles while sweat dropping. I see. Well, I'm glad that your time running from the Kendo Club has helped prove to you, I guess. Smiles normally. Well, I should get going. I still need to perform some contracts before it gets too late. Issei a bit disappointed. Oh man. It's already that late. I was honestly ready to go another round if possible. Issei mind? Serious. Besides, if I could somehow replicate what happened to me a second ago, then this could be the birth of a new move that isn't perverted for once. Hyoudou chuckles while smiling. Fufu wow ice. I must admit, ever since that fight with Kokabiel, you've been taking this training, you've been doing a lot seriously. Curious, is it because of the arrival of the Hokurikan? Nervous while scratching the back of his head. I mean, kind of. I do admit I did feel a little intimidated when he came crashing down and took down Kokabiel like it was nothing while all of us were struggling. Even with me power to Uchu, it did nothing to him. So you Coldesight gave me a huge reality check of how outclassed we are if more people like him were to show up. Hyoudou nods in agreement. I agree. Thankfully, summer break is coming up, and if the Leaders' Summit goes off without a hitch, then that should give us some ample time to train and hopefully improve ourselves even more if possible. Curious, but don't you think you should tell Buchu about your training regimen? I mean, I'm sure that both her and Akino-senpai would be more than happy to help and continue your magic training if you just asked them. This unknowingly made the brown-haired flinch, because even though he could ask either Rias or Akino to help in his training, they would no doubt be more persistent on why he was so interested in training on his magic, and he didn't want to tell anyone about his nightmares because he was afraid he would be right. Plus, after seeing how Arias and Akino looked at him today, he was honestly more afraid to ask them for help. It was then Issei mustered up his courage and put on his usual sheepish smile, which did not go unnoticed by the blonde knight but decided to press on it. Issei sheepish smile while waving it off. Nah. I don't want to bother Buchu and Akino-senpai with something silly like that. Besides, they must be super stressed and busy setting up the upcoming Leaders' Summit with Sona Kaiju. Like you said, summer break is coming up, and if the peace conference goes well, then I'll ask Buchu or Akino-senpai to help me then. The blonde-haired knight couldn't help but feel puzzled by what his fellow peerage members said, since even though he would have to admit that both Rias and Akino have been stressed since they've been helping setting everything up for the peace conference, but he was sure that if Issei asked his mistress or queen, then they would at least schedule him for training sessions. And no doubt Rias would be extremely proud of Issei for focusing on something productive, then doing something perverted. But he decided to trust his comrade and believed that he would no doubt tell Rias about his training after the peace conference. Hyoudou. Serious? Okay, well, I should get going on doing some contracts, and you need to help train Gasper, correct? Screams in terror. It was then two boys looked over to the source of the screaming and saw that effeminate-looking male with platinum blonde hair and pinkish-violet eyes. His hair is styled in a short bob cut with several small fringes over his forehead, and he has pointed ears, being chased by a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a dyed green fringe on the right side and brown eyes. Holding a large, uniquely shaped broadsword that was taller than the girl, with a blue blade and a golden edge. The sword has a semicircular guard on the left side of the handle that extends to the bottom just above the pommel, with a small extension on the right side of the handle. They both wore the Qua Academy's girls' uniform. The aforementioned cross-dressing boy is named Gasper Vladi, a former human-vampire hybrid, and is the first bishop of Rias Gremory and wielder of the dangerous and powerful sacred gear Forbidden Baylor View, who was recently released from his seal in the old school building since Urzex believed that his younger sister was now strong enough to handle him. Since then, the brown-haired boy has been trying his best to get through to his male cowhai, mostly to get him to stop wearing such girly outfits and become more manly. But much to the brown-haired boy's dismay, Gasper's overly shy and cowardly personality has made it difficult for Issei to truly help him. But Issei wasn't the type to give up so easily, so he will continue to persist to help his cross-dressing cowhide until he snaps out of his complete shut-in lifestyle and be a true man. Vesper cries, "Please stop chasing me, Zenobia, Zenobia." Serious, stop crying and keep running. Believe me, you will one day thank me for this. The girl in question was Zenobia Corda, a former exorcist who used the church, but after finding out that the biblical God has been dead for centuries, she decided to leave the church and became the second knight of Rias Gremory. Although her recent de facto departure from the church did put a huge strain on her friend, Rias Hyoudou, who was also Issei's childhood friend, she still persisted in getting used to this new life as a devil. The sword that she was carrying is one of the legendary holy swords created by the biblical god, Ddraig, which has the power to essentially cut through anything, and it was said to be on par with Excalibur if completed. Both boys sweat drops since they knew that Issei truly had his work cut out for him with young Damper. Hyoudou smiles while waving off. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, Ice. Issei, sweat drops while waving off. You see you. I'm Skip. Currently we see Issei is walking home with Zenobia since out of everyone in the orc besides Gasper and Kiba, she was the only person that was willing to talk to him, though she did bring up the topic of him giving her children. But after hearing Zenobie's backstory and her life in the church, he couldn't really blame her since from his perspective, she had spent her entire life as a soldier, and as such never got the opportunity to experience even some of the basic pleasures that life has to offer, and never got to really interact with people from outside of the church, and doesn't know how to interact with people her own age. Although the brown-haired boy did have to admit that talking to her did make him feel like he wasn't completely alone. Plus, besides the whole baby-making aspect about her, Issei did learn some aspects about Zenobia that he didn't know about, which is she surprisingly has a motorcycle license, and she expressed a hobby of collecting swords, especially those of Japanese descent. This really did help Issei see the blue-haired girl in a different light, and thought that maybe if their relationship did evolve into something romantic, then he wouldn't mind having a child with her since from what he heard from her, it seems that she has everything planned out for them, which means she could be good mother in the future. But despite all of that, the warning he received in his dreams still weighed heavily on his mind, and for some reason right now the voices of those people who slandered him for being weak and a pervert were becoming more vivid and clearer than before. It was as if his instincts and soul were trying to tell him that his time was up, and that he must prepare for the start of his trial. But the brown-haired boy wanted to refuse such an outcome, and tried his best to shake his head. Basie sighs. Well, at least Gasper is getting a little bit better using his sacred gear. I mean, he was able to stop the ball from hitting him every 15 throws, so I guess that's progress. Zenobia. Serious while nodding. I agree. Hopefully he might unlock his balance breaker in the near future like Rios said. VZ. Sadden him. Zenobia. Curious what's wrong, Ice. VZ. Startled smiles nervously. Oh, it's nothing. Zenobia, just deep in thought is all. Zenobia. Curious, are you sure? Because I didn't want to bring it up, but you've been acting weird ever since Parents' Day. I've even tried asking Asia-chan to see if you've been acting the same at home, but she really didn't give me a straight answer and just told me that you were fine and to not worry about it, which I found different because she didn't sound like her usual friendly and cheerful self when I mentioned you. Issei mind, curious so Asia-chan is even acting weird to Zenobia. What is going on with everyone? Just as Issei finished having that thought, it was then Issei heard a whisper from a voice that he thought he long forgotten, the voice of the person that changed his life forever. Rainer memory. Smirks darkly. Would you die for me? Issei mind. Concern. Why am I thinking about her after so long? But what Issei didn't realize was that Zenobia had been calling his name for the past few minutes while he was completely zoned out on why he was thinking about the fallen angel Rainer, his first girlfriend as well the person that killed him in Asia. It wasn't until Zenobia decided to tap him on the head that he was brought off his zoned out phase. Issei shaking his head. What? What's happening? Zenobia sighs finally. I got through to you. I've called your name for the past few minutes, and you are just walking while ignoring me. Issei smiles embarrassingly. Oh, sorry Zenobia. I guess I have a lot on my mind. Looks around. Where are we? When Issei finally looked to see where he and Zenobia were, his face was filled with dread and sadness. They were by a fountain in a park. The park where his ex-girlfriend, Emer Rainer, killed him. It was then Issei moved in front of the fountain on his knees with his head down. Issei. Scared, why am I here? Zenobia. Confused, what do you mean here? Issei. Horrified, this is where it all began for me, the day where I essentially lost my humanity, the day I died and was reborn as a devil. Zenobia. Curious, the day you died. Issei. Smiles weakly. Oh yeah, you and Irina just knew that I became a devil but didn't know how I became one in the first place. It was then Issei walked over to the bench next to the fountain with his eyes still being covered. Zenobia, on the other hand, was actually showing actual concern for the brown-haired boy, since for the short time she had known she had never seen him like that. Even when they fought Kokabiel and found out that God had perished, he still stood resilient and strong, wanting to push forward without any regrets, which was honestly one of the reasons why she wanted Issei to be the father of her children, since did like a man who was straightforward with everything. And Issei was indeed straightforward and honest with his goals and desires, which she wanted her children to have. Issei smiled sadly. Then in that case allow me to tell the story of the idiot pervert who thought who could truly be loved. Zenobia saddened Issei. Issei smiled sadly. You see, once upon a time there was a perverted brown-haired boy whose dream was to become the harem king. He was so straightforward with his dream that essentially everyone around him called the perverted beast of Kwa and named him the enemy of all women. Now the brown-haired boy didn't care about those comments at the time, because he truly believed what he was doing was natural for a boy his age to act this way. Saddened, but everything changed after one fateful day on a bridge where he was asked out by a beautiful girl named Yuma to be his girlfriend. Zenobia now became deeply worried for the brown-haired, since his sudden change in expression and tone changed drastically on that last part. Even Ddraig, who was listening in on the conversation, was deeply concerned for his host, because the emotions he was feeling were of great concern, since it could be what drives him to enter the Juggernaut drive, or possibly something much worse. But unbeknownst to the three, that what was about to occur seemed like their darkest hour, but will become the shining light that will light the way towards a better future. Issei chuckles sadly. Humph. The brown-haired boy was just so over the moon that he didn't even realize some of the obvious signs that something was not right with this scenario. Smiles sadly. It was then the perverted boy did everything he could do to make sure that the date was perfect as such. He sold a decent portion of his porn collection in order to pay for the perfect date. He truly believed that if the relationship stuck, that he would stop being such a pervert and actually focus on what really mattered, like school and getting into a proper university, so that he could get a good decent job and finally start a family. Saddened, but all of those dreams came crashing down when the two came to this park and in front of this very fountain. Sheds a single tear when they arrived, the girl asked the perverted boy if he would die for her. The brown-haired boy was confused, so he decided to innocently ask again, hoping that he heard her wrong, only for it to end when she repeated the same question, but more dark and sinister. The witch here revealed her true form to be a fallen angel and killed the brown-haired boy just because he was considered a threat due to him being possessed by a powerful sacred gear. All the while the brown-haired boy lay there dying in a pool, he wondered on how he got himself into this predicament, and wondered if maybe he wasn't such a pervert and actually paid attention to the obvious signs. Then all of it that would have been avoided for him. He was just lucky that a beautiful redeeded heiress came to him in his time of need and brought him back as her servant. This truly shocked Zenobia, since she had no idea that Issei went through something like this. The blue-haired just glad that Irina wasn't here to see or this, since she knew very well of the crush she had on the brown-haired boy. If she found out that the boy she loved was turned into a devil due to a rogue fallen angel killing him, she would go ballistic and try to kill every fallen angel in sight for the pain and suffering that they caused Issei. But what really disturbed her as well as Ddraig was the fact that Issei began chuckling like a madman. Zenobia. Concern eyes. Ddraig. Concerned partner. Issei laughs darkly. And do you want to know the funny part of this entire story? That despite what the fallen angel had done to the brown-haired boy, a part of him still loves her? Covers his face while laughing, while crying a bit. It just goes to show, no matter what happens, whether be bad or good, your very first one, your very first love will have this unexplainable hold on you, and no matter years will go by, that hold is still there somewhere. When removed his hands from his face, Zenobia was greeted with the sight of Issei smiling sadly while tears continued to flow through his face. The blue-haired girl truly felt bad for Issei, since to see him so broken was something she never thought she would see from the lovable pervert of the Gremory group, who always had a smile on his face. Even Ddraig felt heartbroken for his host. Sure, he may have had a lot of hosts who have been screwed over by their lovers, but Issei was different in that despite his perverted personality, he was extremely kind and pure in his own way. So seeing him like this truly did sadden the Welsh dragon, since retelling on how he got involved with the supernatural was the last thing his host needed, especially with what he has been dealing with these nightmares. Issei chuckles while shedding tears. So yeah, go ahead and laugh because I am laugh at the pathetic pervert who was tricked by such an obvious trick and got himself killed because of it. It was then Zenobia quickly sat next to Issei and gave him a hug in hopes that maybe ease the brown-haired boy's sadness. Even though she might not know what twas in this particular situation since despite being a nun, she was more suited to combat than talking to others or taking confessions since that was more Irina's expertise. This also really wished that the chestnut-haired girl was here right now since she knew the best and would know what twas help him calm down and snap him out of this depressed state he was in. But sadly for the both of them Marina wasn't here right now and Issei needed someone to tell him that essentially everything was alright, and that there was someone there for him. She would want someone here for her if she went through the same thing as Issei. Zenobia. Sad and no, I'm not going to laugh at you, Issei. No one in the right mind would laugh at you after learning what you have been through. Issei nods while still shedding tears. How do I not? You're not lying. Zenobia. Sad and ice. Issei. Sad, and ever since that date with her I've developed this fear of confessing my feelings to women. The thought of me being rejected by any of the orc, including you, as well as any other girl I get close to frightens me. That's why I haven't fooled around with Rias or Asia despite them sleeping next to me every night naked, or when you confronted me at the pool about making a kid, because a part of me believes that all of you are just teasing me or just leading me on just like she did. I know it's wrong of me to just openly accuse you all of that when I haven't gotten to properly know all of you, but sheds the tear. That's just how terrified I am. The blue-haired was now completely shocked since right now Issei opened up to her about something that she could tell he was trying to keep secret, or at least try to not think about. This made Zenobia feel like an idiot since she was pushing herself onto Issei without giving any concern about how he might really feel and just believed that just because he was a pervert, he would be interested in having sex. There she was wanting to have a strong and happy family with Issei, when all she was doing was thinking about the ending parts of a relationship, and not how to properly start and build a proper and healthy relationship. Issei essentially had every right to be possibly afraid of her and the rest of the girls in the orcs, since if any of them had real feelings for him like Irina, they would try to get to know him properly before instigating to do something sexual with him. Zenobia, sad, and I'm so sorry we had no idea that you've been struggling with such a trauma. Bisiad. Sad, and don't be. I've already accepted the fact that no woman would want to be in a true relationship with a perverted guy like me. I mean, the only reason why girls would want to be with me in the first place is because I'm the Sekiryuutei, and that it would lead them to give birth to strong children. But I thought that at least if I lost my virginity that I would feel some sort of satisfaction. But I'm starting to believe that even with me being the Sekiryuutei, it will not even get me that. I mean, without Ddraig or the boosted gear I'm nobody. Just a normal teenage boy who is overly perverted. Who the hell wants to be with a guy like that? Honestly, it's because of the boosted gear that I'm able to be so close to Buchu and the others. Otherwise, they wouldn't give me the chance of day. It was then the brown-haired boy got up from the bench and walked over the fountain, in which he looked himself in the mirror, and he saw how weak and pathetic he was. Zenobia was about to go over and try to comfort Issei until she got on his knees and began to tremble, while holding both of his arms. Issei. Sad, and just why me? Why did I have to be the one with the boosted gear? I'm not special, nor do I have any talent or special bloodline that I can rely on to help me. Hell, despite taking up 8 pawn pieces, I'm weaker than even a standard low-class devil. I know I can't blame Ddraig for choosing me because he didn't have a choice in the matter either, because if he wanted, he would have chosen a better host that was a match for Volley. Greg. Serious partner. That's not true. Even though yes, you are currently weak, you still have much hidden potential inside you. If anything, I would prefer this partnership than someone who was like my previous hosts and curious partner, concerned partner. As for the reason why the Welsh dragon felt that he couldn't contact his host, it was due to the fact he was so busy listening to the conversation that his host and the blue-haired knight of Gremory that he failed to notice that the curse of the Juggernaut Drive was about to take hold of his current host. This caused the legendary dragon to panic as he began essentially at his current to get a hold himself before he went on a path of no return. Greg, greatly concerned partner. Snap out of it. Control yourself before it's too late. All the while, Issei was still kneeling in front of the fountain being overwhelmed with negative emotions not only of his trauma from Rainer, but the thoughts of the nightmares he was having had become louder and louder. Issei, sad, and I just want these thoughts and feelings to go away. Sirius then speak the chant. Issei, startled, curious. Zenobia, did you say something? Zenobia, confused, no. Sirius, see the words and all of your worries will disappear. Issei then looked around confused as he was wondering where the voice was coming from. It wasn't the voice came again, but this time there was more than one. Each of the voices was a bit distorted and were both male and female. Random male voice. Sirius, the Juggernaut Drive. Issei. Confused Juggernaut Drive. Random female voice. Sirius, it will make all your problems disappear. Random male voice. Sirius, you already know they will conspire against you, even that woman does. It was then the voices of berating from his nightmares echoed in his head so loudly he began to hold head tightly since he thought he was going to go insane. It was then Zenobia, upon seeing this, tried to help Issei to see what was going on with him. Zenobia, concerned Issei, what's wrong? Issei, screams in pain. Stop it. Zenobia, concerned Ice. Random male voice. Sirius, the chant. Random female voice. Sirius, destroy all who brings you pain and suffering. Random male voice. Sirius, become the dragon of domination. Issei. Sirius, I, who am about to awaken. Meanwhile, somewhere else in Kwa. On the other side of Kwa, in a super deluxe apartment building, we see a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee. He was currently playing a game of Call of Duty. Ever since meeting a certain brown-haired devil, he became captivated by the concept of video games and couldn't help playing them. Brins boom, yeah, headshot. So what if I am camping? It's called being a strategist, kid. Well, give me a few minutes alone with your mom and you'll be calling me dad. Sighs, do you really have to be that crude with actual children given your age, Azazel? The person who said that was a handsome young man with light silver hair and hazel eyes. He is often seen wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-colored black leather jacket over it. He also wears burgundy jeans with a silver chain dripping down over them, and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf, and black shoes with black buckles. He was currently sitting in the kitchen of said apartment peacefully eating a bowl of ramen while reading a book of some sorts. While the man previously was Azazel, the current Governor General of the Fallen Angels organization known as Gregory. Azazel? Raises an eyebrow. What? This brat was talking mad shit, and I'm not gonna take it lying down. I've been through too many wars to let some punk tell me what is or what is not considered a good battle strategy. Maybe you should try giving it a go, volley. Believe it or not, it's a very good way to release pent-up frustration and stress. Looks around, let's see, maybe I should hop on some battlefield, at least there they would appreciate my tactical genius. Volley. Sighs and annoyance. How you became the leader of the fallen angels to this day is beyond me. Just as the boy known as Volley finished saying that statement, another voice came into the picture, but only Volley could hear since it was through a mental as well as not wanting to alarm Azazel of what was happening. Serious partner, something bad is happening to Drake's host. Ali, mind? Curious, what is it, Albion? This was Albion, the vanishing dragon of supremacy, and one the 2 heavenly dragons, and the eternal rival of Ddraig. Similar to the Welsh dragon, Albion was also sealed away into a sacred gear known as the Divine Diving during the Great War. Similar to how Issei possessed Ddraig's boosted gear, making him the current security, Volley possessing the Albion's Divine Dividing makes him the current Hakuritan, which makes both Issei and Volley sworn rivals. Albion. Serious. I'm afraid that Ddraig's host is about to enter the Juggernaut Drive. This made the silver-haired boy eyes widen in shock, but quickly calmed his expression as to not alert the governor of the fallen angels. But unfortunately said governor already both saw Vala's reaction as well as Issei's sudden spike in power, but didn't say anything since he wanted to see what Vala would do. Vala mind, Sirius, do you know where he is? Albion. Sirius, yes, but I don't think it would be wise to go, Vala. Vala mind. Curious, why not? Albion. Sirius, because in the last few days I noticed the increase in draconic energy within Ddraig's host, which means his host must have sacrificed more of his body and turned them into that of a dragon. Ali mind, smirks him. Well, at least he is trying to take our rivalry a bit more seriously. Albion. Sirius, that is not the point. Vali, Ali mind. Curious what's gotten into you, Albion. Albion. Sirius, if Ddraig's host has essentially become more dragon than what the boosted gear has already made him, and if he enters the Juggernaut drive, then there is a possibility something worse will come out of it. Ali mind, curious like what? Albion? Eyes narrowed. He could become an evil dragon, and if that were to happen, then there's no telling what will happen to him mentally. And with him having the boosted gear, then I'm afraid that he will no doubt become a force that only the dragon gods can stop. Now this shocked Vali since he heard the tale and the overwhelming power that evil dragons possess from Albion, Azazel, and even from the gigantous dragon, Fafnir. That an evil dragon was supposedly more powerful than a dragon king, and some of the more legendary ones were close to being able to reach heavenly dragon status before being killed. If his host were to become an evil dragon and with the power of the boosted gear at his disposal, then he could actually become one of those evil dragons who can easily reach heavenly dragon or possibly dragon god status. Now, Vala may be a battle maniac, but he wasn't sure if he would fight against an evil dragon, which both Albion and Ddraig both shared, since they knew anything can happen against fighting an evil dragon. But if any case, Vali decided to go, since if it is true that his host could become an evil dragon as his rival, he should at least be the one to take him out before it happens, so that he could at least die as a real dragon. Ali. Serious while getting up from his seat, I'm heading out. Azazel. Curious. Oh, where are you going, Ali? Serious. I'm bored. I think I'm going walk around and get some fresh air. Azazel. Serious. Okay. But be careful. Even with this leaders' summit happening, we are still in Devil's territory, and you are my responsibility. So if you cause any trouble, it will be my fault. Vali? Serious? Yeah. I shouldn't be out for too long. But that being said, the silver-haired white teen left the apartment going to where Issei was currently located. All the while the leader of the fallen angels couldn't help but sigh, since he knew where Vali was going, since as the current Sekiryuutei, he is naturally drawn to the presence of the security, since they are destined to fight over and over again. But still, his main concern was the sudden power increase of said security, Issei Hyoudou, since there was no way he could have unlocked the balance breaker. Unless something emotional happened to him, which could be of great concern. Azazel sighs. Serious. Honestly, I feel I'm getting way too old for this shit. A bit concerned. Just what the hell happened to you, kid? But that said, the Governor General got up from his spot and summoned a magical circle to the location where Issei was. Back with Issei. As soon as Issei said that first phrase, the brown-haired boy released a blood-red aura that frightened Zenobia. Not only that, but Issei's voice came from multiple voices ranging from young, old, male, and female. Zenobia. Frightened Ice. What's wrong? It started. Looks like it will start. The heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. It was always like that, no matter what. That's correct, always and forever. I laugh at the infinite, and I fret over the dream. What the world desires, what the world rejects. I shall become the red dragon of domination. It was always power. It was always love. No matter the occasion, you always choose destruction, and I shall. Serious, you will do no such thing. It was then a new voice that was completely separate from Issei came into the picture that surprised both Zenobia and the past possessors of the boosted gear. But whatever or whoever said that was able to subdue the increasing blood-red aura that Issei was previously emitting, but at the cost of Issei falling on the ground unconscious. Zenobia then quickly ran over to the unconscious boy to see if was alright. Zenobia shakes his body eyes. Are you alright, Ice? Wake up. Ollie. Serious, well, this is interesting. Zenobia. Confused, when the blue-haired girl looked to the source of the voice to see the Hakuraculum with his divine dividing wings out on display. It was then Zenobia held Issei tighter in a protective manner, since if the Hakurakan was here, then it couldn't be good since Issei was the volley. Seeing this, tried his best to assure the blue-haired girl that he didn't mean any harm, at least hopefully not. Volley? Serious while putting his hand up. Relax, I'm not here to start a fight. Zenobia. Eyes narrowed. I find that hard to believe, since not only are you the Hakurakan, but you are also working for the falling angels. So how do I know you're not here to take out Issei since he's defenseless? Ollie? Serious look, if I wanted to take out either my rival or you right now, then I would have done so by now, just like on that day on the bridge. Even with Durandal, you wouldn't stand a chance. Zenobia? Annoyed, TSK. Volley, serious. But anyway, I came here because Albion sensed that Hyoudou was about to enter the Juggernaut Drive, so I wanted to see what was the cause of it. Azazel. Serious. So it was the Juggernaut Drive that I was sensing. That would make sense, since now way he unlocked the balance breaker so soon. Smirks, well, unless he got late maybe. Volley and Zenobia. Surprised, sitting casually on the fountain behind them was Azazel, who had a serious but also curious expression on his face. This shocked both Volley and Zenobia, since they didn't even sense in the area. Volley? Eyes narrowed. Azazel, how did you? Azazel? Grin. Seems that you still need to work on your senses, since I could imagine that Albion was able to sense me. Albion? Serious, I did, but I didn't see anything because I'm currently sensing the status of Ddraig's host. Though I'm surprised he was able to stop the chant so abruptly, since the majority the first time most of either of mine or Ddraig hosts uses the Juggernaut Drive. They can't stop themselves once they hear the chant. Hey, Red One. Wake the hell up, I know that you are still in there. It was as if on cue a green gem appeared on Issei's left hand and outspoke Ddraig, but he was a bit annoyed because not only he was being called out by his rival, but that something a lot worse was about to happen. Ddraig. Annoyed? What can't you see? I'm in the middle of dealing with a serious crisis right now. Azazel. Curious. What do you mean, Greg? I mean, the kid was able to avert using the Juggernaut Drive, which is something not a lot of your previous hosts were able to do, Greg. Serious, the Juggernaut Drive was only the final catalyst of something much worse, and I currently reach my host to help him snap out of it. Azazel. Confused. What do you mean, Albion? Horrified by Office's name it started. Zenobia. Confused, what do you mean? What has started, Ollie? Eyes narrowed, he's becoming an evil dragon. Zenobia. Shocked, what? It was then Dragon did the minor camouflage spell that he placed both on Issei's arms, which revealed 2 dragon arms, but something was different with them, since the usual red scales that he had like when he first gave up his arm to obtain his incomplete balance breaker. The scales on his arms were slowly turning black. Not only that, but he was also slowly leaking a dark and vicious aura that all evil dragons possess. Zenobia. Concerned? Oh no, what do we do? Is there a way to prevent it, Greg? Serious? No, sadly, once the process has started it essentially cannot be undone. Zenobia. In disbelief? No, that can't be true, there has to be a way to stop this from happening. It was then Volley stepped forward and summoned a sword made out of magical energy, and pointed the sword at the unconscious Asahi, which surprised Zenobia, all the while Azazel remained calm and neutral because he understood that sadly this is the most likely option for their current situation. Zenobia. Shocked, what are you doing, Volley? Serious, you heard Ddraig. Once the process starts there's no way of stopping it. Believe it or not, I would rather not do this since I would have preferred to kill him in battle, but if we allow him to completely turn into an evil dragon, then he would be uncontrollable and destroy and kill everyone and everything around him. Include at least this way he will not die as a broken dragon. Zenobia. Pleads Azazel, Sama, you can't possibly allow this. Azazel. Sighs, I'm sorry, Zenobia, but I'm afraid Valley isn't the right here since we don't know what kind of mentality he will be in. I know we will have some explaining to do to both the Mayu and Rias, but once they know of the possible danger that Issei was about to pose to the future peace of our factions, then, though reluctant, will understand and I will take the blame if necessary. Just like Valley, I also don't want to kill Issei, but we have no choice in the matter. Zenobia hugs Issei tighter. No. I won't let you kill him, not when there are still people who still want to try to save him. Eyes narrowed, especially when there's one person out of everyone who will not give up no matter what, and if she finds out that you killed him. She won't care if you're the Sekiryuutei, the governor of Gregory. She will never forgive you and might even take your heads forward. All of you may have given up on Ice, but I haven't. I still have hope that that might pull through. Even though the Governor General did not show it, he was indeed saddened because he truly did not want to kill the boy, not only because he was different than the other Sekiryuteids before him, but he was essentially the embodiment of what he wanted for everyone in the supernatural and the human world to be like, which is to be kind, peaceful, innocent, and carefree instead of making or inventing ways to further separate or destroy each other. They would invent new ways to bring them closer to each other so they could properly defend themselves against those who would want to destroy said future. After meeting and getting to know the brown-haired boy and finding out the truly brilliant mind that he has, the Governor General wanted Issei to be on the forefront of that revolution. But he couldn't afford to be sentimental, since if Issei becomes an evil dragon, then there is no doubt he will end rampage throughout both the human world and the supernatural. And with the boosted gear in his possession, he will no doubt the amount of damage he can do would be unimaginable. He knew that the Gremory heiress, despite a great talent, wouldn't be able to control Issei, especially she can't even control the young damper with forbidden Bellevue. Ddraig also felt for the predicament that his current host was in, and he couldn't deny the logic that both Azazel and Vali made, since if Issei did become an evil dragon, then it will be like if he was in constant juggernaut drive, only be driven to destroy everything inside, including himself. But despite that logic, he wanted to also, just like Zenobia, believed that his host would be able to pull off some sort of miracle to get himself out of this predicament. Ever since awakening inside the brown-haired boy, he has seen him pull a feats that would even a good majority of his host's months or even years to pull off, and on top of being so kind and gentle unlike his previous hosts, it was as his host had this amazing ability to make the impossible things become possible, as long he doesn't give up on what he believes in. Right now the Welsh dragon hoped from the bottom of his very being that his current host can pull another miracle right now. Issei, serious Ddraig. As if his prayers had been answered, he could hear the voice of his partner, but he was still inside his mindscape, which confused the Welsh dragon of what could possibly be happening right now. Brig mind. Surprised, partner? Issei. Serious Ddraig, I need your help. Smiles softly. There is still a small sliver of hope yet, but I cannot do it alone. Will you help me? Ddraig, mind? Smiles softly. Of course, partner. What do you need me to do? As Ddraig was secretly conversing with his host on how he could be saved from this predicament, three individuals were still essentially in a standoff of what to do with Issei, with Zenobia still holding the brown-haired boy's body as if her life depended on it. All the while, Vala was starting to grow impatient, since both him and Albion could see that the process of Issei turning into an evil dragon was still going, as they could see black reddish scales climbing further up his arm. Vala. Serious, I've had enough of this. Move out of the way or you will die as well. Zenobia. Glaring at Vala, then you'll just have to kill me then. Azazel. Serious Vala, don't we can explain why we had to kill Issei, but killing the wielder of Durandal is a different matter. Vala. Serious, we don't have time. Azazel. The longer we wait, then the sooner he will wake up and will no doubt go on a rampage. Like I said, I personally don't like any more than you do, but I refuse to let my rival become a broken dragon. It was then Vale was about to swing the magical sword in his hand towards both Issei and Zenobia, but before Vale's blade reached Zenovia's neck, he was stopped by the voice of the Welsh dragon, Ddraig. Ddraig. Serious, stop. Vali. Surprised everyone else. Surprised Ddraig. Serious, stop. There is a way to save my host from becoming an evil dragon. This made everyone widen their eyes in shock, especially Albion, since he honestly believes that his eternal rival has lost it, since every dragon knows that once the process of becoming of an evil dragon starts it cannot be undone. Albion. Sirius Red 1. I know that you might be close to your current host, but what you are saying is completely impossible. Once the process starts it cannot be undone. And Greg. Sirius, I'm going to stop you right there, White 1. Albion. Surprised him. Greg. Sirius, yes, it is true that I have grown very fond of my current host. Even though he is possibly my weakest host in history, there is one thing that this particular host has shown me, and that is even a fool can make the impossible possible, as he doesn't give up. Even this process has only maybe a 5% chance of actually succeeding. Just like the blue-haired knight, I have complete faith in my partner will come out of the sun scathed like a true dragon. Right now my host is currently using all of his willpower and strength to fight off what is turning him into an evil dragon. But he cannot keep this up for long, and as such he needs all of our help to get him through this. Everyone was both shocked and in awe of the Welsh dragon's words of inspiration, and hope that his will come out of this alive. Once again the one who was most shocked was Albion, as never in all his fighting Ddraig and his hosts, he has never spoken so passionately for his hosts. This made the legendary white dragon on who in the dragon god's name was this boy to make his eternal rival change so much. All the while Zenobia couldn't help but smile happily at Issei's face, since now knew that even Issei wouldn't give up without a fight. Zenobia smiles, you truly are an amazing person, Issei. I think I can finally see this unique charm that Irina had told me about, the very same charm that made or fell for you for all these years, and I think I'm starting to think I see the appeal as well. Keep fighting for a little while longer, Ice, if not for yourself, but at least for Irina's sake. It was then Azazel walked up to both Issei and Zenobia, in which he asked the Welsh dragon on what they needed to do in order for Issei to survive, since if there was a slight chance for the brown-haired boy could survive, then he was willing to take whatever risks or punishments that come afterwards in order to make it happen. Azazel, serious. Okay, Ddraig. What do you want us to do? Greg. Serious. I need you to put up the strongest and discreet that you can produce, because we don't want the Gremory heiress or any other supernatural being coming here and finding out what was going on. This confused everyone, since why would Ddraig want Rias to find out, since the brown-haired boy is her pawn, and as such, she should have the right to know what is going on. The only reason why Zenobia didn't bother calling her mistress was because she was too concerned about what was going on with to even bother having the thought of calling her. Well, of course for Azazel he couldn't really call Rias or the Mao, given the tensions around the Leaders' Summit happening in a couple days, and given Issei was about to be turned to an evil dragon, he really didn't have time to try to reach one of the Mao, to only have a big misunderstanding that could be option of peace unattainable. But not wanting to waste time arguing with Ddraig, the Governor-General did as the Welsh dragon asked and summoned a magic circle so that beings with supernatural senses like Kaneko would be able to sense what was going on. Azazel? Serious. Okay. It's done. Now what, Greg? Serious blue-haired knight of Gremory. I need you to let go of my host and place him on the ground and back away. Zenobia? Concerned but, Greg? Serious, trust me, you need to do this. What's about to happen will be too dangerous for you if you stay in such proximity to say. Zenobia. Concerned him sighs, very well then. It was then Zenobia did as the Welsh dragon instructed and gently placed Hisish in the ground and backed away. But as she backed out she quickly prayed to the dead biblical god, despite receiving a massive headache due to the system, that Issei would survive and come out alright. Greg. Serious. Okay partner, let's see if this crazy idea actually works. As soon as Ddraig said those words, Issei's body began to glow a bright crimson red, but unlike when he was about to enter the Juggernaut Drive, this aura was not violent but calm and steady. Even though on the surface nothing was happening, on the inside it was completely different, in which Ddraig was currently turning half of Issei's body into that of a dragon. Upon seeing this, Albion was panicking because he truly believed that his rival had truly lost it. Albion, shocked as Ddraig fucking insane, if he turns more of his host into a dragon, then he is just accelerating the process and making it worse. Azazel, eyes widen in disbelief while pointing no look. Everyone? Shocked as the three looked to where Azazel was pointing at, they could see the black scales that were growing on Issei's arms were going down, as if Issei's body was essentially pushing back or killing the energy that was turning him to an evil dragon. But the part that confused everyone was the color of Issei's scales, since they all thought they would be turning into a deep crimson color because it is Ddraig that is turning him to a dragon. But instead the color of his scales were now a shining silver color that looked like they were made out of diamonds. Zenobia, amazed as he destroying what caused him to turn into an evil dragon. Vali. Serious kind of look. As Vali finished saying that, they could see the black scales looked as if they were fighting back the process, as it was constantly going up and down Issei's arm, as if the brown-haired boy was fighting for his very soul. Zenobia, curious just what is happening there. Albion. Serious. When a dragon becomes an evil dragon, their normal draconic energy becomes corrupt and filled with malice and malevolent, like the evil gods that sometimes create or control them. Zenobia, confused, what does that mean? Ali. Serious, it means that this dark draconic energy was born from Hydu's negative emotions, and as such, just like Hyu, this energy is not gonna give up without a fight. Zenobia. Concerned, so you're saying that Issei is currently fighting against himself, Azazel? Serious, yes, and if anyone could beat the darkness inside Issei, it's Issei himself. I guess it's what the old saying is, in the end you are your own worst enemy. This greatly concerns Zenobia, since Issei essentially fought off the darkness and corruption that was in his heart. But that concern quickly turned into fear as all of them saw that the black scales on Issei's arms decided to make a counter-strike, as it now was rapidly covering almost all of Issei's body in a matter of seconds, with only what seemed to be an area where his heart is still pure, and his left hand where the boosted gear was located. Zenobia, horrified. Oh no, eyes. Azazel. Eyes narrowed. TSK. Come on, kid, don't give up on us now. Ali. Eyes narrowed. Come on, Hydu. You're my rival, god damn it, and I will not accept you going out like this. Albion. Eyes narrowed. Come on, hatchling. Drake placed his faith and pride as a dragon on you, so don't make a mockery of his name and let this corruption get to you. But sadly, Zenobia, Azazel, Vali, and Albion could witness how Issei is truly struggling, fighting corrupt and malevolent draconic energy that was trying to take over him. They all could see that Issei trying his best, but he wouldn't last long, as they could see the corruption slowly reaching his heart. Zenobia. Horrified. No, Azazel. Eyes narrowed. No, kid, not like this. Ali. Eyes narrowed. Damn it, Hydu. Albion. Curious. Wait, what is this? Everyone? Curious, just as all seemed lost, a miracle appeared in which, just as the corruption was about to take over Issei's body, a bright shining silver color which was able to almost completely erase the dark corrupted aura and focused it into 8 spots around his body. But what they didn't expect was Issei waking. But something was off with the brown-haired boy, with starters being his normal light brown eyes were now a deep crimson red. This of course caused both Azazel and Vala to get into battle-ready stances, since they didn't know what was happening at the current moment. But both the aura and crimson red eyes made Albion think for a moment, since recognized this aura from somewhere but could not remember. Albion, mind? Curious, this aura, I know I felt it somewhere before. Eyes narrowed. Could it be? Zenobia. Concern, is that you? Serious? Not, is at least not entirely. Azazel? Surprised, just who are you? Smirks. Don't worry, you'll find out eventually in due time, kid. But let's just to see that I'm an old friend of your dad. Looks towards Vali as well as your great-grandfather winks. That this both confused and shocked the fallen angel and the silver-haired boy, since this boy supposedly knew who their father and great-grandfather was. This also made Vala tense up a bit, since only Azazel and those in the Gregory knew who he is related to. So to think that this mysterious being that possessing his rival knew who he was also must have been around for a really long time. But as the mysterious being that was controlling Issei's body then looked up to a certain giant wide orb in the sky with a sad smile on his face, which confused those in the area. As his old mind? Curious, why is he looking at the moon? Mind. Smiles. Sadly, I'm guessing that I have truly awakened means that our battle is now inevitable. I do admit that a part of me regrets that it won't be entirely me that you will be facing, but sadly, I will never have the strength to truly end this song and dance we've been doing. It truly pains me to essentially see that I'm using this boy again to do what I couldn't, but I know he will be the one that will eventually truly end our battles. But that thought finished the mysterious being possessing Issei. He took a deep breath, preparing for what he needed to do in order for the brown-haired boy to survive and do what must be done for the storm that is approaching. Breathe serious. Well, kid, you did better than I expected, and for that alone you have my respect. Now to finish what you started. It was then the mysterious being made Issei's body glow, summoning more draconic energy. The mysterious being used all the strength in Issei's body to expel the evil pieces inside of him, to which all the 8 pawn pieces came shooting out of the body like bullets, to which everyone quickly dodged them like in those comedy action movies. But when Azazel saw the state of the evil pieces, he was shocked to see that they were not a bright red like other evil pieces, but instead they were a deep maroon color, and they radiated such a dark and malevolent aura, similar to what was inside of Issei. The Governor General was about to pick up one of the said pieces until he was stopped by the mysterious being's voice. Serious, I wouldn't touch those if I were you. Looks to Vala, especially you, Vala. Believe me, you do not want to go near those pieces. This confused both Azazel and Vala as to why he didn't want them touching the evil pieces, but the silvered-haired boy was actually starting to understand why the mysterious being didn't want him going near the pawn pieces, since both him and Albion, something eerie about those pieces, seemed that they got the message. The being that was controlling Issei then placed both of his hands together and had a serious expression on his face. Serious now for the tricky part. It was then Issei's body began to glow in a magic circle that neither Azazel or Vali recognized. It was then the mysterious being who was in control of Issei's body began speaking a chant that no one could understand well, at least except for Albion, who as well every dragon knew all too well. Albion, mind, shock dragon tum. Sirius zu lost awoken zu lost vesa silent devere lakun wo embodies hind arc de fa pa zu vartwa yarl vesa possibilities arc fall vesa unslarhanu. Translation. I have awoken. I am true silver dragon god emperor who embodies the hopes and fates for all. I vow to protect the infinite possibilities and the true everlasting dream. Now obey thy will and return thy flesh to my true shining glorious existence. With that being said, Issei's body began to be engulfed in bright silvery light that blinded everyone, in which when died down Issei's body was the same, but with the exception that he now had a silvery white streak on his hair and still had red crimson eyes. But both Azazel and Vala could tell that it was still the mysterious being controlling Issei's body and stood ready to fight. It was then said being turned to Azazel with a soft smile which caught the Governor General by surprise. Smile softly. Hey kid! How long can you keep this barrier up? Azazel, surprised. About an hour or two before someone notices. Why? Smiles softly. Perfect, more than enough time for everything to be set up. With that being said, the being pointed his finger up and shot a what seemed to be a silver bullet out of the barrier, in which he smiled softly as he followed where the silver bullet of Draconic was going. Mind. Smile softly. Remember our promise, Office Cham. Albion could only stare in both shock and awe through his host as he finally recognized where he sensed that aura from and who it belonged to. Albion, mind, in complete awe. I can't be. The true vanishing dragon has returned. It was then the mysterious being that was controlling Issei's body walked up to Vala, which caused the silver-haired boy to get even more defensive as to what the person who was controlling his rival was doing. But the person did smile softly as he expected Vali, and couldn't think he looked like a spitting image of his great-grandfather. Smile softly. I must decide, you truly look like your great-grandfather. It's kind of scary. Vali. Eyes narrowed. So you know who I really am? Smiles softly. Yes. Yes. I do. And I must say Albion has found himself a wonderful host indeed. No doubt you are going to be Albion's strongest host, past, present, and future. I have no doubt in my mind you will be able to surpass Albion in his prime given time. Ali. Smirks him. Serious. Although Issei will no doubt surpass you in no time, especially with what's about to happen with him, he will be beyond your reach. The amount of blood and sweat he will put in order to prove those who have wronged him will put him on the path into becoming the strongest. He will devote his very soul to becoming the strongest. Everyone was shocked with the exception of Albion by the mysterious being's declaration on how Issei will no doubt surpass Vala in terms of strength in no time. This of course made Vala smirk with anticipation, since he was curious how strong Issei would be once he gains control and begins taking his training seriously, all while not knowing what the being actually meant which said being sigh mentally. Mind, sighs while sweat dropping. Well, he wouldn't be a Lucifer if he wasn't at least a bit prideful. Even though they will be more or less on equal terms during the peace summit, but once finally returns from Remnant, the gap between will truly be massive. Serious. But as rivals, I'm sure Vali will overcome this hurdle and will catch up, though it will only be close kind of. Serious. But if you want to try to come close to him in strength, then I suggest you start working on taking care of that pesky juggernaut drive, since it has only been more of a burden to not only you, but also every previous host of both Ddraig and Albion. Azazel smirks. I've been trying to tell him, but he won't listen to me. Serious. Well, he should, because having natural talent will only get you so far, Vali. Well, you did train yourself for a good amount of years to become this strong. Even I can tell from first glance you mostly relied on the power granted to you by your lineage, and it's because of that Issei will surpass you. Believe it or not, you will be needed for the oncoming storm that is approaching us, and thus you need to get stronger in order for you to survive. Azazel. Confused. You know about the Chaos Brigade? Serious. Yes. But believe me, there is a threat far greater than that, to the point that if this world has any hope for survival, then every god in the world will need to put aside their petty squabbles and join forces. Sad, and sadly it will fall on Issei's shoulder the burdens of what's to come, since it is his fate to be the deciding factor of what will happen at the end of this battle. Everyone was indeed shocked, as well as a bit terrified of what this mysterious being said, that there will be a far greater threat than the Chaos Brigade. Even though Vali couldn't help but smirk in excitement a bit, since it meant he will have plenty of opportunities to fight strong opponents, so that he could further improve himself and gain strength. But before Azazel could further, the being controlling Issei's body then felt his hands trembling, in which he smiled softly as he knew that he was up. Smiles softly. Looks like it has already started. Walks over to bench and sits down. Well, as much I want to chat with all of you more, but I need to let the process finish and let take over. Looks to Vali. But before I forget, Albion, I know you've been listening and I know you know who I am. Albion. Serious. Yes, I do, and let me say I am truly honored that you have returned, but I am also saddened that you've been reincarnated, which meant you were killed. Smiles sadly. Yes, I was. Smirks with one eye closed, but until Lisette wakes up, no telling who I am. Okay. Albion. Bows respectfully. Inside the sacred gear, you have my word, my lord. Now this truly shocked everyone, because not only did Albion know who this being was this entire time, but also the fact that he was referring to him with such an honorific. This shocked especially Vala, because he has never known his partner to speak so highly of someone, like if this being was truly superior to him. Vala, shocked and confused. Albion, what the hell? Why are you calling him your lord? Do you know him? Albion, serious. Yes, I do, and believe me, Vali. If in all honesty, if you knew who you and Azazel were speaking to, then you should be kneeling on your knees. You should take heed of his advice, since even though you are indeed my most powerful host, you still have a long way to go before becoming a real heavenly dragon. The eyes narrowed. While you and Azazel were so busy talking, you failed to notice how much power Ddraig's host has acquired since his transformation. It was then both turned to his body to sense his current power level, to which both of them became completely shocked at the increase. Issei's powers went from being below low-class devil to essentially to that of a high-class dragon. They were completely shocked on how someone as normal as Issei had instantly become so powerful so instantly. Even he did become a dragon, he would have been a low-class dragon at best. But for him to become a high-class was essentially unheard of, though once again this made Vali smirk, since this meant his rival was one step to rivaling him. All the mysterious being couldn't help but chuckle in both amusement and embarrassment. Chuckles. Now, Albion, you don't need to make anyone bow to me. To be honest, I wasn't a very big fan of it in the first place. Sweat drops. Even despite me telling them not to, they still do it, which made me a little bit uncomfortable in all honesty, since I really deserve that much praise. Smiles. But yes, thanks to the last bit of modifications that I did to his Issei when he became a half-dragon, it has resulted in him being on par with a high-class dragon, but he will still need time to learn and control his power. Mind, Sirius plus with the seals that were placed on him when he was born, he should be coming close to becoming a Dragon King class if he does train properly. Smirks. Well, see you kids on the flip side. But that being said, the mysterious being controlling Issei then closed his eyes, in which from what it looked like Issei had fallen asleep, even though on the inside the final touches to his new draconic body were being made. It was then Azazel went up to Zenovia, as he was still curious as to what caused Issei to almost enter the Juggernaut drive in the first place. Azazel. Sirius, so care to tell me what happened. Zenovia. Confused Azazel. Sirius. What just happened to his Issei shouldn't have happened unless he was overwhelmed with an immense amount of negative emotions. As such, I need you to tell me what occurred before he started the chant. Zenovia. Sirius. But why should I tell you? Even with this peace summit coming up, you are a fallen angel and I'm a devil, so we're technically still enemies. Azazel. Sighs in annoyance. Look, I know that my kind has done unforgivable things, especially to Issei here, but right now you and I have something in common, which is the kid's well-being. Zenovia, eyes narrowed while being sarcastic. Yeah. You really cared for his well-being when you were just a few minutes ago ready to kill him. Azazel. Sirius, look, the circumstances were different, since if Issei were to become an evil dragon, then there would be no telling what would have happened. He could have easily gone on a rampage, which is like being in a constant state of the Juggernaut drive, and with the boosted gear in hand, things would have definitely gotten worse. As such, I had to think like a leader and think about how this will really affect my faction, and if the other faction leaders were here, then they would have agreed with me, although begrudgingly. Zenovia couldn't deny the fallen angel's leader's logic, since even she did Corlia's or the others, then they couldn't have done anything to stop Issei from going berserk. And even though she doesn't truly understand things from a leader's perspective, but she guessed something dangerous was about to go on a rampage that will no doubt attack her kind, then the most logical thing to do would be to take it out. But she was still hesitant about telling something that Issei kept private to Azazel. Seeing the expression on Zenovia's face, the Governor-General decided to give her a good reason why she should tell him why the brown-haired boy was about to use such a forbidden technique. Azazel. Sirius, look, do you want Twasi to go through this again? Zenovia, sad and no. Azazel. Sirius, then tell me what happened so that we can get him the help he needs, so that hopefully he doesn't go through that again. Zenovia. Hesitant sighs in defeat. Fine, if it truly helps Issei, then I'll tell you what happened. Ice narrowed, but I swear to the dead god's name that if you try to manipulate or do anything to Ice, then I will end you, fallen angel leader or not. Azazel. Sirius, I swear. Meanwhile in Nepal, deep in the mountains of Nepal, on top of the highest mountain otherwise known as Mount Everest, sat a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and black eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark gray eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. Currently, the girl was just casually minding her own business as she stared up into the sky with an emotionless gaze, trying to enjoy the silence. But sadly, this was not the true absolute silence that she seeks, since even being up in the seclusion, her enhanced hearing made it where she could not only the noise of the village down below, but the creatures that soared up above her. But until she could obtain the silence she so desperately desired, this mountain was the closest thing that she would have to true silence. Emotionless one day soon, I would retrieve my silence, Bucker read, curious some. As the black-haired lowly looked into the direction that caught, what she saw was a speeding silver energy bullet that was heading right towards her. For some reason, the black-haired girl felt like she recognized the energy that the bullet was emitting, but before she could react or think on it, the said bullet hit her, and even though she wasn't harmed by it, since in truth nothing can really harm her, but when the silver bullet did indeed hit, not only had a feeling of familiarity, but also heard a voice that she hasn't heard in so long. Smiles softly, remember our promise, Office-chan. Upon hearing what the voice said, the girl named Office felt on her cheek, and when she placed her hand on her cheek it was wet, but what was on her hand was not blood but water, although a bit salty. When she realized she couldn't stop the salty water coming down from her eyes, she also felt strange. It was a feeling that felt completely new to her, or rather it was a feeling that seemed so foreign to her she had completely forgotten all about. She felt this strange sensation of both satisfaction and sadness, and she couldn't tell which one it was. But one thing was for sure, she did remember making a promise, and she was for sure going to keep, because the being that she made that promise counted on her, and she wasn't going to let him down. It was then the black-haired girl looked up to the open blue sky, though while shedding tears from her emotionless gaze, a soft smile formed. The office smiles softly. You've finally returned, Oni-sama. Meanwhile on the moon. Deep underneath the surface of the moon lies a large cave where no human nor supernatural being could enter, and that it was big enough to fit a large lake, as if trying to compensate for something going in or out. Deep at the end lies a large stone door that far exceeded over 100 meters tall, completely barricaded with extremely complex spells that only godlike beings could perform and use. But the more intimidating aspect about this door was actually what was inside of it. Within this door lay a shadow of a sleeping beast that was several 100 meters large, and from the shadows one can see that it had the characteristics coming from different animals. It has 7 necks, 7 heads, with 10 horns, as well as 7 long thick tails of different shapes. Now the beast wasn't actually sleeping, it was forced to be asleep as part of the seal that was placed by the being that ultimately sealed him in here, but it was definitely aware of what was happening out in the world. Currently, this sleeping beast had felt the presence of someone he hadn't seen his imprisonment, and even though it couldn't show it in any physical form, the beast was indeed furious because it was this someone that was also the driving force of imprisonment, as well as some personal matters that he had done to him in the past, but also sadistically happy because it meant that his destined release was soon at hand, as well as having the chance of seeing the person who did this to it in utter despair. Mind. Serious humph. So you are finally awake, you've decided to use that boy again as your champion. Eyes narrowed. It doesn't matter how many times we have done this across time and space. I will never forgive you nor change my mind. I will show both you and him that I was in the right, and your so-called champion will be my example. Smiles sadistically. Be prepared, Issei Hyoudou. Because what you are about to experience will only be a small taste of the true despair that I will inflict upon you. But that thought finished the beast mentally prepared with excitement for both the amount of carnage it was about to unleash, as well as the chance to finish one of the many battles against the person who he both despised and adored the most. The stage has been set, the battlefield chosen, the contestants chosen. Now that is left is the path to be made and what the outcome will be. The main question is this: will Issei, a normal perverted teenage boy and this generation's Sekiryuutei, as well as the now former pawn of Rias Gremory, will truly be ready to become the true shining light hope that light this world's darkest hour, or will he fall into darkness and despair? Only time and the choices he makes will decide his ultimate fate. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.